Firstly, I just want to congratulate you guys on yet another fine album with Familiars. Just to simply, more stellar work, and the level of consistency is amazing. And I want to start by asking you, there's a lot of intensity connected to these songs for you. Tell us about this collection of songs being sort of like a transformation of your reality.
Well, I guess that would be a good way to put it. Like I think of these songs as sort of being this kind of this surreal version of reality. It's been a little while since they were written, so it's kind of hard for me to get back into that frame of mind. But I think the idea was to kind of imagine a spirit version of myself and to communicate with it through the record.
You've mentioned the record was about getting a better handle of yourself, but also getting to understand the past better. How did this come into play?
Well, we took a bit of a period of time off after touring on Burst Apart and Undersea, and when that happened, I just happened to be home for a long time and just have time to reflect and think and write while I was doing that. And I think that sort of introspection happened naturally. It's just kind of what I'm inclined to do, I think, when I have time off.
I want to talk to you about the song Surrender, and I understand this song, for you, it sort of brings everything down to earth, and it entails relationships and friendships. Tell us about the significance of the song itself.
Well, I think it brings things down to earth, but it also kind of brings them to this sort of more astral place as well, this kind of otherworldly place. I think I was attempting to sing from a perspective removed from myself, but closely attached to myself. Like not singing as me, but sort of singing as a sort of as that spirit figure that I was talking about, and that figure being this kind of version of yourself that knows you very well, and kind of knows your past, knows your future, understands your present better than you can necessarily understand it yourself. And I was just trying to imagine what it would be like to kind of inhabit that form and write as that.
Let's talk about the song Refuge, the final song on the album. The song itself is about the idea of home, and it doesn't have to be a place, it could be a feeling. Tell us more about the origin of the song.
I guess through a lot of the process of working on the record, I was just thinking about what home meant to me, and you think about it a lot, or I think about it a lot on tour and traveling and being away from home, and sort of homesickness, what that feeling is, and what it is that you're actually drawn to and missing, and if that's an actual place, like a house you grew up in, or a house or apartment that you live in, or if it's really just a kind of combination of factors that kind of create a feeling in you, and if that's something that doesn't necessarily have to be attached to a place, but can be sort of just this energy that you bring with you, and if there's a way to carry that feeling with you wherever you go.
Previously, a lot of what you did was premeditated in terms of writing and your vocals and your guitar, but this time around you sort of had a creative parameter, whereas whatever you did with vocals and guitars was directly kind of in conjunction with translating with live material. How did that pan out?
Going into this, I had noticed that in the past there had been kind of like two writing phases for me as far as music, where I would write for the record and then I would rewrite for the live show, because I would, with guitar parts I would record like 10 guitar parts on a song and then kind of compress them down into one that I would play live, and I just decided I wanted to skip that step this time and just say, okay, I'm gonna write that stage of it this time. And naturally things change in the show, like as we tour these things, I change my mind about what I think sounds good, what I want to play, what works in a live setting. But I was trying to kind of preempt that this time and cut out a part of that process and just go straight into something that could directly translate.
There's a notable difference with the voice. How would you assess it overall, the role of your voice for this album?
Well, it was a lot about, I wanted to get to know my voice more, and I think that kind of tied into the ideas behind the record, kind of getting to know yourself better, and how your voice is so tied into your identity. And for me especially, it's become a really big part of it, and I wanted to kind of veer away a bit from not exactly veer away from, but sort of take the focus off of the falsetto and the lower register, which I had really focused on in the past, and sort of treat those as these sort of, almost as if they were different characters, like sort of lesser, not lesser, but like different versions of myself, and say that the kind of true center was the center of my range, and to develop that, to practice that, and to make that stronger and more comfortable.
There was an exuberant feel whilst you were making this album, sort of like an old feeling and a new feeling both at once, sort of like a new birth. I mean, how did that kind of come into play for you?
I think I was just thinking about past output and how I think about that a lot when we're on tour and when we're playing old songs, and some of the songs from Burst Apart or Hospice now feel like ancient to me, even though it's only been several years. But they can feel like they were written by a different person. I guess just because so much changes over time. And I think I wanted to kind of, explore that stuff again and see what I still might connect to in it, and if there was anything that I did connect to. And at the same time, I think those albums existed for me more in my head than actually listening to them.
Sure.
It was more about my kind of thoughts about these records and kind of revisiting the periods of time that they were being made and thinking about where I was at the time and seeing how that applied to the present.
Let's talk, about the live aspect. I understand, before you was pretty much more of a rock band feel. Now the live show is more delicate, more lighter, more spacious. How does it feel to have this, like, more of a reformed approach to your live shows?
It's great. I think it keeps it fresh for us, for it to be always changing. I think the band was different in 2009 than it was in 2011 than it is now in 2014. And it's nice to change and evolve, and at the core of it still be ourselves, and still know that we're not really forsaking anything about our musical identity, just sort of changing it and tweaking it and refining it to fit where we're at in the present.
I wanted to ask you, I read a Twitter comment on your Twitter. It said, if somebody could bring me a cat right now, I'd give them a test pressing of Familiars. What was that about?
I think that was Darby, actually. I don't know, he likes cats, and I think he would, I can't blame him on kind of, if someone were to just deliver a cat, I would be pleased with that.
And what about your merchandise? There's some dark bandanas that you have as your merchandise, and totally sold out. They've done really well. And how did this whole thing come about?
I think we were talking about the idea of creating Antlers bandanas, and then I think Darby came up with the idea. It's like, well, they should be dog bandanas because that's just better than a bandana naturally. And we're like, what would we want if we were gonna getting a band's bandana? Like, I would want one for a dog. They can be worn by people too, but
with your downtime and outside of music, how do you commonly like to unwind? Between tours, there's the feeling of getting jaded and things becoming slightly mundane, perhaps. How do you like to unwind?
Well, I haven't had a ton of time off since we put out the record, but ironically, I spent a lot of the time off from touring just traveling, and traveling without playing shows, without working, just visiting friends and kind of exploring and hiking and just kind of wandering.
Sure.
It's been good for my head.
What are the key fundamentals that you hope to maintain and stay true to as you head forward? I
like to think that we're a pretty genuine band, or at least our output is pretty genuine.
Absolutely.
We try to just follow our own creative compass, and whatever comes of that is what comes of it. And there will be kind of an ebb and flow of commerciality with that. But I think it's ultimately just about us being true to what we care about and what we think is interesting, and whatever comes as a result of that is beside the point. It's really, I don't know if it's beside the point, but I think it's too unpredictable to fixate too much on a reaction, or to fixate too much on a response or a measure of success. I think it's more to create things that we can stand behind, and feel are true.